Now, oftentimes on the show, we talk about the issue of the Blue Shield. For those of you who don't know, the Blue Shield is just the idea that the police officers act behind a blue shield where they know it's this in-group, out-group mentality. Whatever they do, they'll protect their own, and you're the bad guy. If you're not in that blue family, well, you're the problem. So it's a theory. Many people believe in the theory. Many people dispute that it actually goes on. But here we have a case, this came out today, where it's fairly clear that, at least in some circumstances and in some instances, it's very real. So the Massachusetts Civil Service Commission found that the Methuen Police Department was giving preference to job applicants who vowed not to arrest fellow officers for driving drunk. What's so stunning about this story is how brazen it is. They're like, yeah, Blue Shield right here. This department believes in the Blue Shield, son. Let us tell you. All right, let me give you more. They say, quote, the city turned the interview process upside down. There is simply no valid basis to award the highest points to candidates who express a willingness to apply one set of rules to strangers and another set of rules to friends and family members. This is from Addicting Info. Now, the police department defended itself, though, and here's what they said. Quote, this is one of the lieutenants. I'm looking for some bearing, some honesty, and how quickly the person can think on their feet. The idea is that someone who claims they wouldn't give preferential treatment to friends and family is lying. Quote, some of the interview panelists actually heaped high praise on those candidates who stated that they would arrest a stranger but not arrest a friend or family member based on the same facts, citing their understanding of discretion. Apparently, there was one applicant who was refused the job after saying he would arrest his parents if he caught them drunk driving. He was called insincere, and it was said that he had, quote, a lack of discretion. People who have friends and family in the police department, however, seem to do very well on the applications. 5 of the candidates who had connections, they were hired. All right, that is so illuminating and so telling, and it's just a little piece of information here, but it says a trillion things. So if your dad or your uncle or somebody in the family was a police officer and the police department knows they're not going to rock the boat, they're a good guy, they're on team us, well, then they say, look, my nephew here, my kid here, they're on our side too, and they're not going to fuck around. They're not going to rock the boat at all. They're not going to stand on principle. They're not going to really uphold the law if one of us violates it, so let this one into the club. And they're clear. They say, we specifically let people go if they said, I will uphold the law. Justice, remember, the whole idea of what America is supposed to be is justice is blind. So it doesn't matter if the president violates the law or if it's a janitor in Cleveland. You both violated the law. You're going to go to jail. Okay, that's the idea of America. Here they're saying, no, the exact opposite. Let's, act like a banana republic or a fascist country. If you're in with the good guys, well, then you get to do whatever you want. This is scary, man. I think we all knew to a certain extent, or many of us knew, I should say, to a certain extent that the Blue Shield was real. I was unaware of how brazen it is in some circumstances, where, it's a fucking job requirement. You can't have this, man. You have to. Whoever's in charge, whoever calls the shots, I don't know the way the chain of command works or whatever. You gotta fucking fire the department and start from scratch. This is insanity. Now you know, and remember, Michael A. Wood Jr. of Baltimore, former Baltimore police officer, he talks about this all the time. He says, look, lying is something they do all the time. Now you know that this department is guaranteed to lie. How am I supposed to trust if there's a situation where an unarmed black person dies in creepy circumstances? How am I supposed to trust the word of the police officer when they're telling you we're only hiring people who refuse to go after their own? So then I already know that you're going to say, well, we're not at fault, reached for my gun, did something bad, did something wrong, that's why I had to kill him. But they're letting you know I'm not going to base it on the facts. I'm not going to say what's true. I'm just going to say what's going to protect my own ass. That's the opposite of what police are supposed to do. Protect and serve us is the idea, not your own ass. So as Michael A. Wood Jr. said time and time again, he's like, what, do you think that the black community has been lying to everybody for decades? No, they're telling the truth, man. The police are oftentimes an occupying army that only care about their own. There's another story in the news today. A different police officer threatened to murder a black guy. Now, thankfully, he had some sort of recording device on him because he was harassed by this police officer for an extended period of time. So he caught him red-handed. But guess what? That police officer still has a job. Why? Because of the Blue Shield. And also, they settled out of court, and he got, however, I don't know how much money he got. Not a lot. I think it was like 35 grand or something like that. But that guy's still working. No, but that's insane. If a guy threatens to murder people and he's still a police officer, that guy shouldn't be a police officer. That guy should be in jail. Justice should be blind. The blue shield shouldn't be so clear. In this case, it is crystal clear. You got to fire this police department. You got to start from scratch. Either that, or don't get mad when the black community, for example, says, we don't like any cops. We don't like all cops. Don't get mad when they say that, especially in places like this, because if they say that and they live in this town, that makes sense. That's a logical conclusion to draw. Not because they're biased, but because of your actions. You're asking for it now when people start to blame all cops, because you're saying our entire department is corrupt and we're cool with it. Okay, then fuck all of you. How about that?